Are you planning on riding the festive 500 challenge over this Christmas? And you want one of those roundels, the ones that Rafa used to give away but don't anymore? No worries, Harrison Fund are doing them if you raise £100 towards research into Duchenne disease. Here we see Nick Telsig with two sons, both suffering from it, who won't reach adulthood. Just ride 500 kilometres, raise £100 and get the badge. Why not sign up now?
Good evening, racers, and welcome to the Nopinz Super League Round 2. Tonight, we are on the Bood Loop, which is still in West Cornwall. And tonight, we've got a long one-lap race. It's 40.3 kilometres of a very unusual terrain, riding through past Bood in the west coast of Cornwall and the beautiful coastal town of Bude. And the loop is actually going to be super challenging. It starts in King Hill, and then we start climbing with the 1.5 kilometres at the start as we leave Bude, through Stratton, up Ivyleaf Hill and all the way into Kirkhampton. As you can see from the map, it's a huge big loop. After a cheeky little downhill, the main hill starts at 3.7 kilometres. And then we drag up for a further 3 kilometres all the way up to the top of the hill where we enter Kirkhampton for uninterrupted climbing. We then go through some roller coaster, the roller coasters of Bude, along the long stretch we can see there. This just goes up and down, up and down, up and down. There'll be absolutely no chance for the riders to recover. And then we'll find that the pack will be absolutely obliterated by the time we get to the downhill section, heading back to the finish. But we don't finish downhill. Just before we get to the end, there's another little cheeky uphill after the 22 kilometres of punchy rolling hills, and the finish is another uphill finish. So get your votes in today for who do you think is going to be today's winner. We've got until the 8 kilometre point, the top of that first climb, to get your winner in. Put your comments in the stream and start your comment with "My winner is." Everyone who guesses the correct winner will go into a prize door for a Nopinz voucher. And Nopinz are sponsoring this series, and the overall winner wins one of their beautiful Sub-Zero kits. Now, last week was another fantastic race. Let's have a recap what happened last week. So as you can see, classic RGT start straight out the pen, red all over the place. And we could see even in the early parts of the race where there was just so many attacks. Fellbacker was great, Jamrazik, who is our race winger at the end, putting in big attacks. Claes was up there as well. And then Jamrazik made a few great attacks and eventually rode away for the win. But Wheelsucker was hard on his tail. There was a small racing pack just chasing for the points for the third place. Jamrazik was just coming down that hill. Wheelsucker nearly got him, but Jamrazik just cruised through to the end after a superb attack on the final climb. Will we see the same again this week? Will we see somebody go solo? Will we see a bunch taking it through the climbers? Or will we see the whole of the group staying together right to the end for a bunch sprint? What do you guys think? Personally, I think this is going to break absolutely wide apart up that first climb. Do you think that the climb is only 3 kilometres? It's not. You're deluding yourself if you think it is. The climb starts within 1.5 kilometres of the start. So not only are we going to see this mental, absolutely red zone start, by the time they're just ready to recover, ready to actually start again, it'll all be going off again. So we can see the current standings and the individual and also in the team positions. So after great performances last week, Jamrazik leads the silver bronze quite comfortably from Wheelsucker in second and Zach Harner from the Nopinz 3R team in third place. In the Platinum Gold, Walter Claes, who put some great attacks in that first race, takes the podium place after just pipping Hana to their line. Feldballer, who did an enormous amount of work in that first race, gets second position. And Blodgett, a very strong racer, gets into third. In the team position, Restart Racing, comfortably up ahead. ECKD, who had a lot of races, a lot of riders in that first, and they made a lot of the work in that very first race, coming in second place. Nopinz R3R in third. And in the team silver bronze, ECKD, again, big numbers in that race today. We can see they actually managed to pull out good points with OTR Blue, who were again a strong RGT team in second position. So here we are on the start line. Starts in 23 seconds. Another great number of riders in the pack there today. We can see all the team jerseys, and hopefully we will pick out certain riders as the race goes on. So who do you fancy to win today's race? We've got Gringo, one of the Nopinz R3R, who's a very aggressive rider. Will he actually start to pick this while apart? And we can see off the start, red numbers straight away. Has everyone got off the line cleanly? We shall see. A couple have just stuck on the line again. That's their race, well and truly over straight away. So it's from the off, we can just look, even from the off, we can just see those gaps starting to form already. We haven't even got to the hill yet and we're starting to see gaps arriving in this pack. So are we going to even hit the hill with the small pack as it starts? Or are these going to come back together? This bit is relatively flat. We can see the white dots on the screen at the top on the right hand side and the screen at the bottom. These are all the individual riders, and the riders that we're following are the ones in the center of the screen. So this first little downhill section there is when everyone's going to gather that speed. Bit of effort to begin with, but riders starting to settle in. We can see those coloured bars underneath the names that indicates how hard they're working. And we can see we've already split into two small groups, but I suspect this chasing pack will just notch back on again before we hit the first little incline of the day. So we can see little splinter groups arriving already. Little all over the road they are, and we can see last week's combateur Beams from Peddlers currently still there in the front group. Will he put quite as much work in this week as he did last week? Will he have a quieter week this week and let some of his other teammates and some of the other guys do the work? Will we see Gringo, new to the racing scene this week? Will we see him starting to blow things apart? I'm fairly sure we'll see anytime soon. If we look on that map on the bottom of the screen, we can just see how the slopes are changing. From green, which is very nice and easy downhill, to red, which shows a very steep up incline. Now we've got this little steep section here. This is a really cheeky little stretch. This is only just into the race, and we're already starting to see riders going into the red, starting to attack. Look, every single rider on the left hand side has got red numbers beside their name. So we can see that these riders are really wanting to break this up really early, get over the top of these hills with as small a pack as they possibly can, so that we can take it across the top with fewer races on the roller coaster, so that we've got a smaller group to sprint for the finish. Gringo, as suspected, leading the way, followed by some of his Nopinz colleagues. Will they be able to work as a team this week as ECKD did last week? Or will we see these riders just start to blow themselves apart? Chris Smart is his official name, gets always called Gringo. Very strong rider, loves to go on the attack, and we can see that today. Blodgett is currently in the standings. Is there? Claes is there as well. I can't see Jarmazik there at the moment. Was he in the starting lineup? I didn't actually see him on the start line, so whether Jarmazik's actually there or not, whether he's dropped back, we'll be able to see somewhere down the pack, I'm sure. Over 3R setting the early pace here. They're certainly taking it to the rest of the crew. Bonner and Gringo working on the front with Vanna from 3R as well. Briley, he's actually putting some work in there as well. So 3R have certainly put the stakes down here. Nopinz and 3R both putting in some great efforts to get to the top of this climb. So we can see we're coming up to 2.43 kilometers raced. When we get to this 3.7 kilometer start at the top, that'll be a nice little recovery for them downhill before they start the big long climb. And this pack's staying together quite well. Bonner. Look at Bonner. He's actually messaging while he's riding, while he's pumping out 400 odd watts, just putting on a message. Yeah, he's going to win this race tonight. Very, very calm, very collected. You're not working hard enough if you're able to message. Unless this, of course, this is a relative of Bonner. If it is, support your brother. I like it how if you're either Bonner's brother, you're supporting another rider. There's family love for you. Riley taking the front. 3R definitely setting the pace in this early part of the section. We've got the downhill bit where we're just going to recover a little bit, getting that breath back, getting ready for the next bit of the climb. So we're currently at 3 kilometers. When we get to the 3.7 kilometer point though, that's when the main drag will actually start to happen. We can see the riders have all come together. Actually, we've got a pack of a fair sized pack, actually, probably bigger than I thought we might have, but I'm fairly sure that when we start to pick up again, we will see this pack definitely winding down. Henry Farrell there, working hard. You can see just starting to move to the front, starting to put some work in from Welwyn Garden City, UK. 31-year-old, one of the whippersnappers. Pulse at 153, so he's not working too hard at the moment, but he's working hard enough to be able to keep himself comfortably in the pack. So here we go. We can just see that little incline section starting to get, and there's Gringo off again, certainly putting his players down for getting the Combateur award today. No prizes for that today. The prize goes to the predictor of the winner. Lots of shout outs for Chris Smart, being very formal, giving him his Sunday name. Chris is definitely taking it to the rest of the pack and opening quite a group. CKD coming across to close that gap. Will anybody join them? Will we start to see this front pack just start to break up over the next 4 kilometers? So this climb is now just a relentless uphill climb. We'll see a little bit of a gentle slope, and then we'll see it start to steepen up in a little while, peaking out at 8 kilometers. Fellballer again, after his attacking abilities last week, he's showing again that he's got the mettle to kind of keep attacking again and holding on to Gringo. So that pack's holding together quite well at the moment, but I expect as we start to get into the orange zone on the climb, we'll start to see these riders drop off. And already I think we're going to find out that there's going to be a small group heading over the top. Red numbers on the left hand side. Riders know they just have to get in the right position to be able to hold on to this front group, to be able to stay in the draft, give themselves a good fighting chance of getting the W. Gringo still putting out red numbers, still really putting the pressure on this front pack to break it into bits, and in this little downhill section. Little recovery bit for everybody now, getting the positioning, trying to hold together, trying to keep in. Ederdam, another one of this ECKD riders. Denmark have got a great team of riders here. They've got 2 teams in both of the leagues putting out a lot of riders. So last week we saw that they were definitely working as a team together to put attacks in. Fellballer, Pedersen to an extent, Ederdam as well, were all putting attacks in last week, and it really paid off as they started to whittle the field down. This week it's the Nopinz 3R team that are starting to turn the screw, and they've got numbers in that front pack, but there's 4 3R jerseys there already. Sadka Arena is also trying to break up, but they don't want to be chasing Gringo down. You don't chase your teammate down. That's one of the golden rules in cycling. Let him go off. There's 2 riders there. Let the other teams do the work, and at the minute nobody seems to want to be closing them down. And this race course today is just constant up and down. It is like a roller coaster. This little section is like the chain, just slowly pulling you to the top. The downside is when they get to the top of this, there's not going to be any hands in the air, there's not going to be any screaming and shouting for more. There's going to be just an awful lot more pain as they head up and down this booed roller coaster for 22 kilometers. 22 kilometers of up and down action we're going to see over these flats. So it's certainly not going to be sitting in the draft, having a cup of tea, eating their dairy milk. They're certainly going to be working hard all the way along here. Multinational race again. We can see races from all over the world, and we're starting to see some of these races just starting to drop off the front pack, just really struggling to hold this relentless pace that Gringo and Fellbella are setting off the front. Barkley down in 27th from 5th UK, one of the strong OTR riders, just struggling to hold on to this front pack with the pace that they are setting in the front there. Ostergaard, one of the ECKD riders, the Danish riders. Again, we thought last time they might actually send some riders up the road to try and create some attacks. But what's happening is we're seeing that this attack by Gringo and crew is starting to break things apart. Tim Cuckoo leads the 3R team. Still in there with the racing, and it's difficult in these races because all the races start together, so sometimes difficult to see which are in the silver and bronze and which are in the gold platinum. And as you saw last week, Jamazik is actually a silver bronze rider and he won the whole race, so it's not a real true indicator of ability, just depends on where you want to enter. Fancy chances? Go for platinum gold. Want to just take it a bit more conservative? Go for silver bronze, and that's what we saw last week. So Gringo, straight from his pro training camp in Tenerife. Well, I thought it would be more like Ibiza, Benidorm, Ayanapa for Gringo, not Tenerife. That seems to be far too upper class for that man. Maybe he's moved up, maybe he got an upgrade, who knows. But we can see the two of them still absolutely smashing it out the front. Yeah, Gavash, strong rider, absolutely Roy. He's definitely one to watch out for, but currently it seems to be that these two at the front that are really turning the screw, and they've got quite a little gap going at the moment. They've got a big enough gap to be able to hold this. They've currently got 1 kilometre to go before they hit the peak of this climb. Liam, thank you very much for that. I would absolutely love to know what a Donnybrook is, so please do expand on that. Fellbella, Gringo, trading blows. Are they working together, or are they just trying to break each other down? We shall see when we get to the top of this climb whether they continue to stay together, whether they continue to trade places, or whether they just decide to ease off and let the pack catch. But it would seem very silly of them if they decided to ease off now, let the pack catch, and they've already made out at 100-metre gap almost to the chasing pack. There's a few riders in that pack, so if they get their act together they will be able to chase these guys down. So we've got just over 0.7 kilometre before we hit the peak of this climb. Then we have a little downhill section where they can have a bit of recovery. And again, we can see these riders just dropping off the back. That pace is just too hot. And this is just absolutely demoralising if you're a rider. So you get yourself warm, you get your half an hour warm up, get your legs warmed up, you get in the pen, you get ready to smash it for the first kilometre, and then you think, great, I'm going to settle myself in here, get myself positioned, get in a position where I can just hold the front pack, and then suddenly, whammo, somebody decides to put a huge effort off the front, blows the pack wild apart, and suddenly you're off the back, you're in 43rd position like Lennox, and you're now having to completely change your race plans. Gringo and Fellbella still holding it out front, holding 5.9, 5 watts per kilogram all the way up this climb. So they're coming up to the crest. These guys are still going to push over the top, and we'll see this draft that they get coming over the edge. That will just increase that distance. Currently it's still at 89 meters, so they've still managed to hold the gap from the chasing pack. Are these guys working together? The 3R guys, as we can see, just sitting back there, just letting other teams do the work. Swart, who's the main racer for Restart Racing, taking it to the rest of the pack. Mike's going to have to work hard here to actually pull these in. Will he be joined by other riders from other teams? It does seem like other riders are starting just to put some effort in. This is because they know that they're coming to the crest of the hill and the downhill section's coming next, and we can now start to see that incline just start to change. And there's Fellbella, Gringo over the top, minus 6.6% slope. We can both see, even Fellbella, they're still going into the yellow, still wanting to attack. Both of them dropping down into the green and blue, just showing that they're taking things a bit easier now, getting a little bit recovery, getting ready for the next section. And we can just see some of the cams there. Tom Giggs working hard in the chase group. Gringo looking particularly comfortable there. Doesn't look like he's working hard at all. But Beams, we can see, look at the pain on Beams' face. Beams was one of our most attacking riders last week. He put in a huge amount of work and was our combator award last week. And he's kind of having to work hard to stay in this chasing pack, to chase these guys down. Gringo just giving it to the camera there. Good lad. Just showing off his Tenerife tan with his vest top there. And the two of these guys still working ahead. 120 metres they've got now. Will this close down as the pack starts this little section across the flat? Or will these two guys continue working out? Falbella still going into the red. He's not keen to just let this gap stay as it is. He's keen to open it back up again. This little kicker just before you hit the rollers is coming up. The pair of them working hard together. And I think these guys probably are working hard together to try and keep this pack away. Gringo putting in a little more attack in the 8.3% slope. So after you've just done that work for that 5 kilometers or so, you've got a little bit of recovery, legs are still feeling like jelly, and then suddenly you're smacking out a huge amount of power on this 8.3%. Two of them trading blows, and they've now still got a 90 meters advantage. Will the chasing packs start to respond? They've got plenty of time. They've still got 30 kilometers. We're only 10 kilometers into this race. Can the front two hold it out? So all of your predictions are in. Be interesting to see which one of you guys are right. Welcome to Devon, gritty roads. Beautiful scenery though, beautiful scenery. Beautiful sunshine. It's about 10 degrees warmer than it is where I am at the moment, I'm sure, as it is all year round, Liam, down in the southwest coast, as opposed to being up in the northeast of England, standing freezing cold in my garage, commentating on this very race. Mind you saying that, I'm warming myself up with a cup of coffee, other than these guys who are warming themselves up with 6.5 watts per kilogram as they start working these climbs. I know where I'd rather be right now. This is going to be an absolutely brutal race. You can guarantee that nobody is going to come away with this race saying that there was a nice easy group ride stroll in the park. So we can now start to see this front group starting just to exchange blows a little bit. They probably realise that they've got a bit of work to put out to be able to catch these two guys up. Blodgett there, who's doing well for the podium position for restart, starting to put in a bit of work. We can just start to see Clays putting in a bit of attack there, taking it to the front, who did a lot of work last week. Ketterine, Blodgett, Beams probably in there again. Wouter Clays also racing in a few of the other RGT series. Certainly a very strong rider, doing very well at the moment, currently leading the platinum gold section. So he's certainly got enough metal behind him to be able to put some graft in here, to be able to take another podium position if he can manage to hold off the rest of this pack. But you never know, they may well chase these front two down. Beams putting in the work again. Did some great work last week to John Beams. Great to see him working so hard, and he's a good UK born lad as well, so we know whether he's from the south of Worcester, nice place down in the south. 44-year-old, so he's no spring chicken, but very experienced and very, very strong, as he showed last week. No problems at all putting some attacks in. And there's the three rider cams we can see again. Beams looking a bit more comfortable, getting himself into a bit of a rhythm. Gringo, though, just coming out the saddle there, obviously hitting one of those uphill rollers, wanting to put a bit of an attack in. And Tom Giggs there, still kind of pedaling away. He's got a reasonably high cadence there. Looks like he's got almost like an Airbnb cam going on there, a little secret cam with his psychedelic colours in the background there. But head down there, head down, Tom. Go on, keep pedaling, mate. Keep working hard. You're still there, son. So as you can see, these colour bars, they're in the greens and the blues now. So this pack is feeling this pace a little bit. They're certainly not making any massive inroads into the front two at the moment, and they're really not pushing massively hard. They really need some concerted efforts, some people rolling off the front to really start to close this gap down. We know that Nopinz R3R are not going to put that work in. Why would they close the men down? ECKD, they're going to be the same. They've got one of their men at the road in the front too. They're not going to be pushing any power out at all to close these two down. They're quite happy to push their man out there and start working hard to try and get the sprint finish. Beams working hard on the front. Clay's working hard again. Clay's wants to protect his lead, and Beams riding out of the pedalers team with, I can't quite see who he's riding with there. It might be Mard actually with the pedalers who's there with him. So there's a couple of riders there for the pedalers pushing the position. They've got a bit of work to do. ECKD, you've got positions to hold, but again, they're not going to be putting an awful lot of work in. Restart, starting to put in some work now, starting to realise that they're going to have to work together to close these two down at the front on this bit of downhill section. What is unusual is that they're putting an awful lot of work down as they're going downhill. That won't catch them a huge amount of time. They've got the draft in their favour when they're going downhill, but it's these uphill sections where Gringo and Fellballer are really turning the screw. That's where they're making all of the difference. And look at the gap now, 163 metres. That gap is just continuing to climb. That pack is not making any inroads at all into this front two, who are very, very slowly pulling away with 27.4 kilometers to go. Nowhere near halfway yet, but we're just starting on this 22-kilometer section of rolling road. It'll be up and down. We're going to see these colored bars going between yellow to red to blue to green all the way around, and Fellballer even have a bit of recovery in grey. They're having a bit of an easy time sitting in Gringo's draft. If we look on that top left hand corner there, we can just see the metrics of the rider. So we can see the power they're putting out, the cadence that they're working at, and the heart rate. All these three things can help to validate the medal of a rider. So all of these riders do have to do a weigh-in if they're in the Platinum Gold Series and they're going to be a winners, to make sure that their weight is accurate, because that has a huge impact about how much power you can put up when climbing. If you're a heavy rider, you have to put more power out to be able to maintain the same speed up a hill. If you're a lighter rider, slightly less. So these riders have to have accurate rates on RGT. The top of that graph, we can also see how well they're working, but we can see that little green arrow, they're saving however many watts. This tells the rider how efficient their drafting is. So they can save a huge amount of effort just by sitting on somebody's wheel, letting them do the work, and then coming across the front to take the lead, take their position, or just sitting there creating some time. This slope now 7.3%, 9.1%. It's that little kicker again, one of those little kickers in the roller coaster. This is where Gringo and Fellballer put in a lot of effort, pulled out a lot of the time. And again, we see every single one of these riders in the red. Nobody wants to get dropped here, because you know for a fact if anybody gets dropped off this pack, that's their race over. They're on solo until they get caught by another small pack. And I'm fairly sure that what we'll see behind these riders is little pockets of riders starting to gather up together, sitting in the draft, trying to work together. And these guys, nobody wants to get dropped. That's why we're seeing these red numbers, even though they've still got a huge gap to the riders in front. Henrik, one of the ECKD team, strong rider, did a little bit of attacking last week off the front. Hasn't done quite so much there today, but he doesn't need to. He's got one of his guys up front there. He can just sit there, let the other guys do the work, sit in, have a bit of an easier section around here, but without taking it too easy and dropping off the back, which we just saw there. Little spurt going on from the group. Fellballer having to work a bit harder just to maintain that. And in RGT, the draft mechanics are exceptionally real. So if you just lose that draft, it is very, very easy to get dropped off the pack, and we will see some of these riders drop off if they just fall asleep, not really paying attention, trying to get some recovery. Gringo and Fellballer still pulling out a gap, 141 meters now on the downhill. The main pack is on this downhill section as well. They'll be pulling off a little bit more speed just because of the size of the group, but will it be enough Christoph, thank you very much. Yeah, Henrik and John and the Peddlers, they worked exceptionally hard last week. And thank you for all of your comments last week too. I can see John and Henrik putting in some work now. John will want to be putting a little bit of work in there to see Henrik in a better position. Oh, Wayne Fellballer is the man to watch. Well, he certainly was last week. He certainly was the man to watch in the front half of the race last week. This week, he's kind of doing the same amount of work as Gringo, really putting in some of this graft. And now we can see the actual pack, that chasing pack, is that probably the closest it's been for a good while now. Is this because of the uphill section, or is this because the pack started to work a bit harder, or is it because Gringo and Fellbagger are starting to feel the pace of trying to hold off a chasing pack who are hungry to get back in touch? Henrik from Peddlers has, they were saying, working together there with John Beams. A few restart races in there, Swart and Blodgett in there as well. They seem to be taking turns on the front. There seems to be much more of a coordinated, concerted effort to close this gap down, taking turns off the front there, creating that little bit of extra draft for the riders to follow, then just easing off with a bit of recovery. And we'll see that Dow there off the front. Is he trying to create a bridge? Blodgett going with him, but he's eased off again. So they're just slowly eating into this lead of Fellballer and Gringo, now down to 69 metres. Will they be able to close it down to 0, or will we see Fellballer and Gringo start turning the screw on this next little incline, which we can see coming up very, very soon? So even now, we started with a lot of riders. We can see how much this front group is just whittled down. 3R still with good numbers in that front group, so a combination of the Nopinz guys who are in the platinum gold and the R3R guys who are in the silver bronze, both from the same team, so undoubtedly will want to be working together to try and keep their man out in front and away from this chasing pack. CKD starting to take the front a little bit now. Gav Ash from TMC. Gav hasn't done an awful lot yet. Is he going to start to put a concerted effort in to really try and close this gap? This is a big bridge for a solo rider, so to actually go from this pack up to those two front guys would burn a huge amount of matches, and by the time you got there you would have very, very little left in the tank to respond if they did decide to attack, which is always a danger. They just want to be in touch and distance enough to be able to bridge over, but currently that gap's just a little bit too big to be able to take one or two riders across. They need a little bit of a closer gap, a little bit less effort, so they can close up, take a few riders with them, and then maybe take Gringo and Fellballer with them. But currently, maybe this group have got a bit of a pact. Maybe they'll all want to work together to be able to close this gap up together. But that gap's just starting to eke out again. As we thought, Fellballer and Gringo, sensing the danger, starting to put a bit of graft in. That's a great question, Liam. I think we've got a few riders in that chasing pack who are very, very capable of putting in big enough attacks. The question is will it be coordinated? Will the attacks be long enough? Will they be able to sustain the work? And we've got, will ECKD and will Nopinz R3R actually give them any support in doing that, or will they just sit on the wheel, let them burn themselves out while the other two riders are up the front, showing a great display, getting some great coverage for the sponsors? So that gap's fairly stable now, isn't it? It doesn't seem to be coming down, doesn't seem to be going up. This is where the pack can make a big difference, and now we can see there we go. Dowd thought that gap was just the right distance to bridge across from restart, puts in a big effort. Is he going to be chased by his teammate Blodgett to close that gap, and are we going to start to see riders in ones and twos starting to come across and pulling the rest of the pack with them? So after a 19-kilometre twos up effort from Fellballer and Gringo, the pack seem to be slowly closing it down. But will we actually see this splinter into two very distinct groups? Can the rest of the pack respond? Can they bridge over? That gap's still there, so they haven't got a draft to be able to help them out. They're going to have to put some graft in to close this up, and they're going to be starting to run out of road to do it. As this pack grows at the front, their draft will increase, their speed will increase in the downhill, making it only harder for the chasing group to close them down. Henrik Mild from Pedalers bridging over as well. We can just see that gap starting to close down. I think these guys are actually going to close it up and create one great big pack again, probably by the 20-kilometer mark. As we can see, this flatter section fairly flat. The draft will always give them a little bit of advantage, so maybe this is a wise move by Gringo and Feldballer. They had their attack, they had a good gap going, but the fact that these roads are a bit flatter now very much favours more riders, more draft, and they've started to close up. And there we go, front pack back together again. 13 riders in the front from, I think we can count, and so from the number that started, that's a very, very select group of riders. Last week's winner, Jarmazik, isn't there. Whether he's further down the field, we don't know whether we'll be able to find that. We'll find out, see whether he is in the race, or he may not be racing this week. He may be having a week off, letting his teammates do the work instead. So will we see this pack just start to ease off again now, or will we see somebody take it to Gringo and Feldballer and start to put them into the hurt locker? I think we will probably see this just calm down a little bit now. For the time being, we're just past halfway, pretty much getting there. So this is halfway through the race, and we can already see riders starting to flex the muscles. Briley from Nopinz R3R, who loves an attack. John Beams, we know he loves an attack as well. So contrary to what I thought, we are seeing riders just wanting to split this pack up again. Somebody else wants to have a go. I doubt very much whether they'll be goings in ones and twos. Everyone will be wanting somebody to come with them. Jan Vanna just dropping off the pack there, pace 2, but Jan is in the silver bronze category, racing for R3R. So we've done a bit of work there. He's now kind of very much heading the R3R team there. A bit further down the field, we can see Looker, Turner, both Nopinz and R3R riders, a bit of a little group there. We can just see the distance they are from the front group. Just look at the amount of air between where these guys are and where the front group are. We can just see how much that pack is absolutely split wide apart. Some strong riders in there, Looker in there, Hart in there, Turner in there, Bonner in there, all strong riders just unable to hold the pace. Pedersen, another strong rider from EKD, again not able to hold the pace in the front group. And we can see these little splinter groups all the way down the road. What we will probably find is that these will gradually congeal together, and we'll start to see one probably big chasing group forming as these smaller groups all gather up together. Gakes, and we could see Gakes with his head down before. We can see the result of that. Gakes now down in 26th position, dropping off front group. Barkley from OTR up there as well. He was one of the stronger OTR riders, just not being able to hold the front. Gakes now looking a lot more comfortable than he was before. Head down before, puffing his cheeks out. And we can see he's now into a much more comfortable position, getting into a rhythm. Gringo up on the saddle, starting to put in a bit more work again. Yep, and there we can see Gringo starting to put in a bit more work, attacking off the front with Katarine 3R again, putting in the attacks. John just looks constantly in pain, but that's not surprising given the amount of work that these guys are putting in. So again, over another of these small rollers, over the top, down the other side. This is where you have to crest with the front group, otherwise it's very, very easy to lose that wheel. And there we can see Henrik has just lost that draft, so it's going to be hard for him to get back in, but he's with a teammate bearing. Oh, there's Wouter Claes who's currently leading the platinum gold section, has dropped off that pack. He will now have a bit of a solo time unless he's got a few riders around him. Wouter was going to find it difficult to get back in. Blodgett will probably team up with Wouter to give themselves a little bit of an effort, see if they can just close this gap a little bit, but I'd be very surprised if these two can actually close that front pack down. They've worked exceptionally hard, they've dropped off the back, and to get back onto this front pack will take an enormous effort. And even if they did make it, I doubt very much that they'd stay there for very long. You can see now riders splitting all over the road. As we suspected, these little inclines, these little attacks are just forcing riders just to be spat out the back. Great, massive big group of ECKD riders there down in 30th position. These guys will work together. We can see other riders in that group as well. They will let the ECKD riders do the graft. They will just sit in. Coming further down again, smaller groups again, all teams represented all the way down the field. OTR, Restart, Heinz and there on his own. These roads solo are just really difficult to ride solo. You've got no draft to give you a rest. It's relentless. You can't move. When you're in a smaller group, at least you've got somebody's wheel to chase. You've got somebody's wheel to sit in the draft on. You've got that inspiration, that incentive to continue to push. It's very easy as a solo rider, as we can see with Heinz there, to get caught by a smaller group. Not only because of the draft effect, but also because it's really difficult to be able to hold that momentum, to hold that resilience, to hold that effort for that length of time when you haven't got anybody to chase down. And that's why we will see these solo riders slowly get swallowed up by chasing groups. Some of them will get chasing down and then just spat out the back. All the way down, third, go down in 50th position. Still some riders around him, and we can see that these riders are now in dribs and drabs. We will start to see them team up a little bit now. Not many riders like to ride solo on these platforms. It's very difficult to be able to maintain a level of effort when you're riding solo. John Blytheway, one of the constructs of RGT, very important in the RGT world, putting in a bit of effort up into the yellow zone, currently sitting in 58th position, still sitting in the field, coming chased up by Mako from OTR. So we can just see how much this field has absolutely been split wide apart just because of the complete relentlessness of this course. All the way down to Christoph, 64th position, and we can just see how many riders we've got just spread across the whole of this road. Some of these riders haven't even reached halfway yet. 18 kilometers these guys are, so they've got another 4 kilometers yet of climbing up and down these roads before they even get halfway. So we can just see this is not an easy race. It's a 40 kilometer. We went very much off-road. There's G-Ski off-roading, going on the black runs off-piste, and their Great Britain journey. Taking it nice and easy now. I think his race of all races is gone. Back to the front group. We can start to see this is whittled down even more. Down to 8 riders now in this front group. So we've seen 5 riders shelled off the back. Beams, who was super aggressive last week, off the front there. And there's that chasing 5 riders there. Briley, who put in a bit of attack. Wouter Claes has been caught. Henrik and Blodgett. Dowd there on the front. Gringo again putting in that bit of effort to really push forward. Closing that gap. Who do we fancy for the Combatant Award yet? Too early to shout? Or do we think Gringo's done enough so far? Felbala doesn't seem to be there at the moment. Is Felbala still in the front group? Yes, he is. He's still there. So we might well see Felbala from ECKD putting in some work. But Gringo at the moment certainly seems to be putting in the majority of the work at this front after taking the lead early on. Henrik Mard backing up John Beams. Will he be working for John this week? Will he be taking the place of the attacking rider on their team? Gav Ash there from TMC as well. Good to see Gav there. Gav's done a bit of work to pull that back up again. So he did look, he was dropping off at one point, but managed to get himself back in again. Still those 8 riders up the front. The 5 chasing behind. We can start to see that gap starting to form. So they've already got a 300 meter gap before these chasing 5 riders. No, down to 5 again there. So these 5 will definitely work together. They know that they're very unlikely to chase that front group down, but they're still riding for a top 10 position. So any one of these guys is good enough. Gake's head down again. He's obviously working hard again to hold in this group. Gringo looks comfortable. I think he's cruising in there. John Beams still looks like he's in pain. John, go on, give us a smile. You know you want to. Gringo looking comfortable. Is he just taking it easy now? Actually doing some work there. We can see what Gringo's doing there. So Gringo is currently looking like he might be wearing one of the Sub-Zero tops or a Sub-Zero bibs. And the Sub-Zero kit has got little pockets for ice packs. Absolutely ideal for indoor training. If you've ever done some indoor training, one of the main determinants of performance is whether you can dissipate the heat. This is why most people who are riding on these electronic platforms always use 1, 2, 3 fans. But with Nopinz, the Sub-Zero kit, you can put in little ice packs just to increase that cooling down effect, which can have a significant impact on your performance. Alex, thanks very much. Yeah, I agree. Gringo will be hard to beat. Dowd and Swart? I think you're right. Dowd is putting a lot of work in the front. Swart's been racing smart so far. And Dowd, there we can see Dowd has actually managed to pull out a 100-meter gap to the chasing pack. So Dowd's starting to make some inroads into this field. But he's out on his own, chased by the 8 riders, 7 riders. Can he hold this for long? 5.3 watts per kilogram on a flat section. That's actually some decent effort he's putting there. His orange is into the orange zone. So for those who aren't familiar with training zones, on the rider's name below that we can see some coloured bars. That gives you an indication of how hard the rider's actually pushing. This is related to what something is called their FTP. And the FTP is their functional threshold power. This is essentially how much power they can hold for an hour before carking it. That would be your yellow zone, so that's your FTP zone. Blue and grey is chilling out, taking it easy. Green is what we would call tempo, which is just getting into a comfortable zone. Yellow is starting to get a bit more uncomfortable into your FTP zone, where you could hold that for a little while. Once you start to get into orange and red, that just means pain. Once you get into the orange and red, you just can't sustain that effort for long. If you try and sustain it for too long, you will just burn matches. And we can see these little spurts of orange and red where riders just make little attacks off the front and then just drop it back down again. So this pack is certainly not letting the front runner go off. They're certainly putting a little bit of effort. They do not want to let that gap open too much. But oh, Dowd has kind of got a canny little gap on this front group now. Can he sustain it? He's still in the orange zone. And we can see on that boot loop pop on the background there, we've come through Kirkhampton. We're now on these rollers all the way around. We're now at 26 kilometers, so we're past halfway. We can see on the route where we are with regards to the inclines, and then very, very soon when we get to this section, we will start to hit the downhill. But they've still got a bit of riding to go yet. They've probably got another maybe 4 kilometers of this rolling terrain before they actually hit the downhill section on the run up to the finish. Dowd still sitting out in front there with a bit of a gap. Got this chasing pack, Felbella, Ash, Mod, Keterine, Gringo's in there, Beams, all chasing down. They're working together though. They're working together to bring Dowd back. But we can just see that gap still there, and they close it down. There's the chasing group just behind the front group. This is the 3rd group on the road. Again, these guys are working hard. These guys are racing their own race now. They're racing amongst this 5. They really want to split this down if they can into 2 smaller groups. If we get a group of 3 and 2, that will make it very, very hard, so nobody wants to get dropped. Blodgett from Restart putting some work in there. Clay's done some work. And there's Keterine, Gavash, both in the red zone. They are definitely starting to want to close down Dowd. Will they be able to close them down before we hit the peak? That would be what they would want to do. They'd want to close this gap down for the peak of this hill. Will they be able to do it? Or can Dowd, he's still in the orange. How long is Dowd going to be able to hold that orange zone? Very impressive working from Dowd today, managing to hold that orange zone on his own. Riding solo is so much harder, as I was saying there before, than it would be if you were riding with another rider beside you. Gringo now starting to again to close this down with Keterine in his wake. working together to close this down. They will all want to reach this front man by the time they reach the crest of this hill, and it does look like they're going to do this. We've probably got 1.5 kilometers to reach the peak of this climb. Now is Gringo going to ride straight through him and go on the attack? It looks like he is, yep. So we're doubting a huge amount of work. Gringo and Kedarine have decided to launch a complete counter attack. You kind of beat a bit of Devon Ice Cream, Liam. Favourite? Come on then. Give me your favourite flavours, guys. What's your favourite flavour? Devon Ice Cream. I have to say I'm a bit impartial to a bit of rum and raisin myself. Not the plain vanilla. Agreed, Christoph. Well done, everyone in front. And your pedalers are doing well. Beams and Maud both working exceptionally hard there. Both doing well. Gringo still off the front. Kedarine's dropped off. Try not to get the pack to close them down. Maud is now trying to close that down. So again, we could end up with Gringo having a different front-runner colleague. Although this Feldballer, he doesn't like the thought of not being in the front. Rasmus likes a bit of front wheel action. And he's definitely putting it in. So we can just see this 8 riders starting to split a little bit. Mike Swartz starting to feel the pace a little bit, dropping off this draft. He needs to work hard to get back into this draft again. John Beams looks like he's just managed to get back in. Can Mike put in a big concerted effort to get on the back of these wheels? Yes, it looks like he's managed to do it, but that certainly would have come at a bit of a price. That would have taken a little bit of effort out of his sprinting legs, that's for sure. It was suspected. This is just going to continue to be relentless. So 30 kilometers down, we've got about 10 kilometers to go. So they've got a fairly easy section now as it happens. This is relatively downhill now. What will be interesting is whether this chasing pack of 4 or 5 riders there can actually close down the gap to the front 3. There's the chasing 5 in the third group, still working hard, still staying together. Nobody yielding yet. It looks like these guys are going to go down to the wire. And then the chasing group after that. So we can see these little groups all over the pack. Little groups forming, holding the draft together, working hard, and we will see that. And again there we can see Gringo and Maud. Feldballer, look how hard he's working. He wants to get to these 2 before they hit the crest of this thing. If they can get together as a 3, really form a tremendous amount of draft, there's a really good chance that these guys will stay away. But Maud and Gringo do not want to let him in the front door. They do not want to let him in the back door. They're working together to hold him out, making Feldballer really work for that. And you can see he's down to the grey zone now. Has he actually burnt those matches, and is he not got the effort to be able to close this gap down? Maud and Gringo back in the blues and the reds, the blues and the greens. They're kind of easing off, but maybe they've just done enough to be able to hold off Rasmus into that 3rd position so far. So this is the only real recovery that these guys get this lap. You can see that it's a big, long downhill stretch. So the fact that it's broken up, that 8 to begin with is broken up into a 2, a 1 and a 5, if my maths is right, means that everybody will have a little bit of draft, but nowhere near as much draft collectively as they did beforehand. Which means that those gaps will not close down very quickly. Gringo putting an attack on that little kicker. Maud matching him. Feldballer still working hard. He still fancies the chances. Really, Feldballer and Rasmus is in absolutely no man's land at the moment. He can't quite bridge up to those front 2. He doesn't really want to drop down to these guys behind. But to be able to stay out in front of the 3 that's chasing him is going to take a fair 5 chasing him. It's going to take a fair amount of work to be able to hold that chasing pack off. So it'll be interesting to see whether he does. Be very impressed if he manages to hold off these chasing 5 riders, as we can see there. My maths eventually was right. Mike Swart now, after kind of having to work hard to hold onto the back, now putting in a bit of attack for themselves, starting to want to break this front group up. Mike from restart, working hard. But here comes Beams. Up and over. Classic move, get in the draft, put a power on, create the gap. Side Kedarine from Nopinz doing exactly the same. These guys are going to be fighting up and down these hills. There's the 3 riders. Giggs obviously is in a position now where he's probably taking it relatively easy in this pack. He's obviously got a pack around him to support himself. He'd be able to have a little bit of recovery time. Gringo still working hard in that front group. John Beams looking a little bit less painful as he was beforehand, but maybe his legs have just come in good. Maybe John's legs have just come good and he's starting to feel good about himself. If that's the case, will we see John breaking off this chasing pack and start to chase these guys down at the front? Bella still holding them off, doing an exceptionally good job to hold this 100 meter gap to the chasing 5. But is he closing down Gringo or Mod? I'm not really sure he is. They have a 200 meter advantage over Bella at the moment. These two working hard, Gringo and Mod still continuing to work hard. This is the last little bit of recovery that these guys are going to get before it all starts to go pear-shaped for the run into the finish. They're going to make the most of this. There's the chasing, that's the 3rd group there. 4th group on the road now, with they're all splitting up, still sticking together as a 5. Nobody seems to be wanting to make a move yet. Will somebody make that move very soon? I suspect we will. I suspect we'll see these moves being be moved now. And again, same again, another small group behind that. We'll see them stick together in these little downhill sections. There'll be a little bit of toing and froing, a little bit of muscle flexing. Nothing really serious going on until we start hitting these inclines. A bit further down the field, row bottom down to 30 kilometers. Here, still got 10 kilometers racing to go with Tom Giggs, a group of 4. Again, working hard at that angle incline, trying to hold it together. Nobody wants to get dropped. Nobody wants to crest the hill on their own, because once you're over the top, if you're not in somebody's draft, you can pretty much wave goodbye to your race. Look at this, 8.8% slope. This is horrible. After doing 34 kilometers and up and down racing, attacks all over the place, suddenly to have to hit at 8% slope. It's 638 watts Rasmus Felbel is having to hold there just to hold these guys off. And as we can see, Beams and Ketterine coming over the top, trying to really put the pain on. Mike Swart again after a great attack before, fighting to get back on the back of his group, and he is. But has he just eased off that? That's always a danger. You work hard to get back on the back of a group. You just take your foot off the gas and then suddenly, boom, that gap's back there again, and you have to get yourself back in the red zone. Every single time you go in this red zone, it just burns matches. Chasing group there, back down in 9th position onwards, all hitting the red. These guys want to break it up. Are we going to see this split into a 3 and a 2? Are we going to see the 2 ECKD guys and Stephen Bradley from Nopinz closing it up? Are we going to see a 4 and a 1? Wouter Clay's there, just dropping off the back of these guys, continuing to try to push hard. He's pushing 477 watts there, but we can see that gap opening up, and these guys are going to crest as a 4. We're going to see Wouter dropping off the back. And you can see that he's dropped down to the yellow zone. He knows that he's not going to close these 4 guys up now. So, but he's now got a chasing pack of about 5 riders behind him. He's got 300 meters, but will that be enough to hold off with still another 6 kilometers or so of racing to go? Front group now on the little downhill recovery section. So they've just come over the top of that hill. Coming down the downhill section again. Gringo and Mard still a good way up the road. They've got a fairly good gap there, but these guys have come together again. So we've got one little section of climbing to go before we hit the uphill finish. I think what we're going to see now is up this little incline here. We're just starting to see that hill changing. Starting to see that slope starting to increase up to 2%. I think we will see somebody try and split this 6 wide apart. Will anybody do it? Felbel has dropped back into that 6 now. Has he got enough legs to be able to pull out a gap, or has he done his work for today? Dowd, after that superb solo attack, just sitting in the draft there. Can he hold on to this group, or is he going to work hard? Gringo still looking exceptionally comfortable up the front there with Mod. They've got a comfortable gap to the chasing group. Are they going to cruise it in now, or are they going to actually make a race of it up this last little incline? I'd be very surprised if either of them wanted to cruise in from here. I'm fairly sure that they will both race hard right to the checkered flag. You can see that that second group, chasing group, just starting to break up a little bit now. I suspected that little incline, this last little attacking incline before the finishing uphill, is just starting to see riders starting to attack. Swart yet again having to work so hard to hold onto the back of this group, but he's managed. How many lives has this chap got? How many lives has Mike Swart got? How many times has he been off the back, sat off the back, and then managed to make it? Or is he just toying? Is Swart racing smart, just toying with these guys? I suspect he isn't. Nobody really wants to drop off the back because you have to work exceptionally hard. You drop the daft, you work hard to get back on again, burns matches. But these guys are certainly not messing around. They're certainly putting some effort in now. We can see 4% slope, still some attacking. Nobody seems to be making some clear air from the chasing riders though. Looks like they may crest as a unit, and Gringo and Mod still going toe to toe up this little incline. They've got this last little bit to get over the top before they've got the downhill recovery to prepare themselves for the uphill sprint finish. Got an out 300 meter gap on the chasing pack. Both of them in the red zone. 491 watts by Mod pulling up there. And we can see that chasing group. Certainly no signs of that group splitting up. It looks like these guys are probably going to cross together. Nobody looks like they want to take it on. Nobody looks like they want to drop off the back. Spreading out like a pace line now, but they're holding together quite nicely. Gringo now pulling out a bit of a gap from Mod. He's got a 40 meter lead, and he's got the downhill section. He's got that opportunity to just build this pace, and you can see even in the downhill, pushing into the red, really putting the hurt on Mod, and Mod just doesn't look like he can respond. So Enric's got a bit of work to do here from pedalers to be able to really hold on to that second position, because he would have done a lot of work there. He's going to have to work hard to hold on to Gringo if he wants to, but he's going to have to work really hard to make sure that this chasing pack doesn't close him down. But with 581 meters gap, I'd be very surprised if anybody can chase Gringo and Mod down. So 3 kilometers of racing to go. Gringo's now building up a healthy lead on Mod. He's got a 9,400 meters lead. Once you start to get up to 200 meters, then that's a really quite a commanding lead. What we'd like to see is whether this chasing pack can see Mod dropping off. Will they start to see him struggle? Will they try and really push to close him down, or will they continue to race their own race? We can just start to see the beams pulling off the front. 6.1 watts per kilogram. Kettering in the red, Dowd in the red, Fell Ballet in the red as well. So even they did attack up the hill, they decided to attack down the hill on the other side. Interesting bit of tactics. When there's the draft to be had, form a little clumpy group. There's a good chance that you can build a little bit of a gap and start pulling away from your fellow competitors. But again, here's Swart again, coming up the back, coming back. Gavash there, TMC coming in there as well. So these guys are certainly working the hardest to be able to hold their positions and try and hold their position in the pack. But it does look like nobody is going to be able to catch Gringo at the moment. So some of the predictions look like they're going to come true, unless he has an absolute disaster on this uphill finish, which I genuinely can't see. So Dirty Dan's, Gavash leading up the Dirty Dan's racing team, continuing to work hard. Gav didn't feature much last week, but certainly featuring today in that front pack. Henrik Mod still got a reasonable gap. You can see it's now was 598 meters, it's now coming down to 450 meters. Will that be enough to be able to hold off this chasing pack, or will they close them down? What do you guys think? Will Mod be able to hold them off? Will Gringo be able to sustain this relentless pace? 400 watts, just averaging, tapping it out there, and he's only got 1 kilometer to go. He's inside the last kilometer. This is an uphill finish, so it's certainly no cruise to the end. He's still got to work hard, otherwise he could find himself getting swamped by some of these chasing riders. But I'd be very surprised if they managed to close down a 600 meter gap within the next 1 kilometer. That would be a big surprise, and I'm fairly sure it would be a big surprise to Gringo too. He can now just taste that ice cream. I think myself, Gringo, I think probably Raspberry Ripple, I think, would be Gringo's favourite. He just looks like a Raspberry Ripple kind of guy with a flake and monkey's blood. Finest Devon cream ice cream. You can just smell it, you can see it in the finishing line. You can hear the bells of the ice cream van tinkling away in the background, and we can see that he's starting to go into the red zone. He wants to earn that ice cream, putting in the effort. 400 metres to go now. Got a comfortable lead from the chasing pack. Can Maud hold them off? That gap is really closing down, so that gap to Henrik Maud and the following is now less than 400 metres. Can Beams from Peddlers, does Beams want to close him down? Does Beams want to close Maud down? Or is he just trying to position himself to get third position and to take the second podium place for Peddlers on the day? Nobody looks like they're going to catch Gringo there. There's the finishing line. He's fairly cruising it out, you know, at a paltry 403 watts, 5 watts per kilogram. And to be fair, the amount of effort that he's put in today, I think that Gringo has fully deserved that win. So some great prediction there. He was aggressive from the very, very start. 3R banner up there to celebrate his win. Very, very well deserved. Henrik Maud still working hard. He can see the finishing line. It looks like he's managed to hold them off. You can see that gap closing down very, very quickly. But I think Hendrik's done enough. He's done a lot of work on the front with Gringo in that last third of the race. And I think he has done very well and deserved this second place. Now we have a finish for the third. Gav Ash from Dirty Dan's managing to hold off O'Dowd. Beams looks like he's blown himself out for this last finish, or has he got a little bit left in the tank to be able to pick these two lads up? Or Dowd there, Dowd putting the pressure in. Gavash is kind of who's going to take this third podium position. Oh, Dowd putting the pressure down. Gavash cannot respond. Dowd takes third. Gavash takes fourth. John Beams takes fifth, and Sad Katarine from Nopinz R3R takes fifth. Selbala, Brodget, Albala and Bearing complete our top 10. And this front pack actually was starting to be chased down. So Briley there from Nopinz R3R managed to get Swart, who obviously just ran out of matches. Mike did a huge amount of work having to chase down the front pack on so many occasions. Stephen Briley from Nopinz R3R obviously put in a massive bit of attack on that bit that we just saw film, managing to close down Swart, overtake him for that top 11 finish. Walter Clays still putting himself in a good position for the overall individual championship. I managed to hold off some of the chases from Bonner and 3R with a great effort there solo. And there's a big 3R contingency coming in now with Luca, Vanna and Bonner, followed by Headbomb from ECKD. And we'll start to see these groups coming in bit by bit. Now, even though they're still working for 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th place, everybody wants to get one over. We've got a threesome sprint going there. Can look at has he launched it in time? Can he catch him? Is Headbomb going to get that? It's going to be right on the line. No, I think he timed it really nicely. Great work. And 3R guys just see out that group to the finish. Now we can start to see these. Will we start to see some? What we're probably going to see now is some individual riders just who've broken off their pack, have been sitting in the draft all the way through the roller coaster, just putting in some small attacks up the hill and starting to break clear. Hart, we know he was riding in a small group before with Turner Farrell, with Turner and Olsen. He's managed to break off the front. We've got Olsen and Turner there. Will they be able to pull it in? As you can see, all dribs and drabs again. So after the dribs and drabs started to form together into groups, as we come to the last little bit of attacks at the end, things have started to break up again, and I think we will see that. Now we've got an interesting little race coming on behind you with Barkley, Robot and Farrell and Gakes. This four is stuck together. What will we see happen with these? Barkley putting an attack off the front, Robot there. You can see that pace line. They're all working hard. They've still got a little while to go, this uphill finish. This is a really tough finish after a really tough race. Nobody here wants to yield. You put in so much graft to get here, you really want to try and finish this race off. Row Bottom taking the front. Barkley holding his draft. Is he just sitting in the draft, just waiting to launch one little final attack? Gake still in the red zone, but just seems to be dropping off there. We could see Tom really struggling earlier on with his head down after working. He's probably working his heart off again there in his pain cave. Rowbottom coming up to the finishing line. He's got less than 200 meters to go. He's managing to hold up Barkley. You can see the banner in his position. We can see them both holding red numbers, but it looks like Rowbottom has managed to hold up Barkley to take 21st position, just outside the top 20. Barkley taking the next place. Gake's the next place in his group, followed by Farrell following up, and Redpath. And we can just start to see these riders coming in little groups now. We'll see them breaking up individually as they go over the line. Again, we've got another small group behind this, looking like they want to chase it down. And again, everybody's really starting to work together and then start to put the pressure on in that last little section. We can see the groups hitting the bottom of the climb together, and then as they hit this climb up to the finishing line, they all just split up. It's survival of the fittest. Who's still got the legs left to be able to finish this sprint off? Pedersen being chased down by Vesma. Will he have enough to be able to hold it? Yes, Pedersen going into the red zone. Vespa responding with a bit of red zone himself. Pedersen responding again, toing and throwing. They both want to get this position. They both want to get these points on the board. Every single point counts in these series championships. It doesn't matter what position you come, every single point counts. You just don't know what's going to happen next week or the week after. See the top 30 coming in, and we can start to see the lads coming in a little bit further down the field, and this will be a mix of all of the teams in both leagues coming in now. We can just see that early part of the race, how it just absolutely blew wide open. So, was your prediction right? Did you get your winner right? Did you pick the right? Did you back the right guy? What would you have given the odds on for Gringo to win this? I think the odds were fairly low today. I think you might have been able to get maybe 2-1 in a good bookies for Gringo to get the win there today. I think we all knew he'd come back from last week. He was going to attack, and he did. Firstly, joined by Fellballer, who again, that's 2 weeks in a row, he's put in some fantastic attacks, and then eventually followed up by Maud, who joined them for a bit and then just died off. Riders continuing to work hard. What's really impressive is that after 40 kilometers of riding on a really tough terrain, we're seeing these riders coming into the last 200 meters still wanting to put in big numbers. We can see even down the road there, Thurgood, Pudel putting in some red numbers there. They do not want to yield. They do not want to lose even one position to the competitors, and in some cases the fellow riders. When you get to this position, you're in a group of riders in your team, you still want to beat the lads who've got the same jersey on as you. Doesn't matter who they are, you still want to win. You still want to beat them, as long as you have done your work to the best of your ability. Red zone for Gerard, working hard. You can see the sprint line come into play, and to actually be sprinting for the line when you've got nobody to sprint against is just fantastic self-discipline to be able to put that amount of effort in to finish off the race. And we can see Gerard's got nobody chasing with him, but he's still putting in that little dig at the end to finish strong, so he can come off his bike, get his ice cream from the ice cream van, and say that he's given 100% on the day. Roger Hughes, OTR, coming in there in 39th position, top 40 finish for Hughes and Thurgood, who actually featured a little bit last week as well, coming in to top out the top 40 riders. So we're now seeing that's an hour's worth of racing that we've seen there today, an hour's worth of really difficult racing. We can just see even down this pack, we can see these riders are still pushing into the red zone. They would not have been cruising, taking it easy, having a chat up and down those rollers. They would have been racing hard with every single rider around them to get these every single point that they can. It might not count for themselves in their positions, but if they're one of their top 3 riders in their team, that will earn their team positions in the championship. Will we see a change at the top of the championship? Will we see those teams change position in the top three? Will we see the same top three on the podium? Or will we see a completely different picture on the podium this week to what we did last week? So we're still early on in this series. We've seen an awful lot of action so far. We can just see how difficult these races are. We know that these riders aren't just showing up here just to make up the numbers. They're coming here to actually win. They're coming here to actually put themselves out there, test themselves against their fellow competitors. And we can see this international field, as we see on most of these virtual racing platforms, working really hard, not only for themselves, for the team, but also for the nation. Good contingency from the UK, good contingency from Denmark as well. Eric, I would love to know who you're talking about. I'm assuming that you're talking about Mr. Gringo, who put in an effort there today. Or are you talking about myself being the king of commentary, or the streaming itself? Thanks very much, Wayne. Good to get your positive feedback. I'll take that the great streaming meant that the pictures, the camera coverage was awesome, as was the commentary. Whether you did or not, I'm still having it. You can see a bit further down the lead. A bit tentative racing going here. These guys are just just testing each other out. Who's going to be the first to go? Who's going to be the first to put the attack in? Got 500 meters to go. Nobody seems to want to be making the jump yet. One of them will. Who's it going to be? Who do you fancy to make the jump? We've got a group of 5 riders here. Which one of them is actually going to go first? A couple of reds. Horton putting in that little bit of a dig. And Select responding. Jan putting in that. Has he timed it well? Has Horton gone too early? He's holding that gap for the moment. He's holding those orange numbers. He's on 5.5, 5.7 watts per kilogram. Chris Horton there, working hard. But Aid, look at the power. What an amazing 600, 700 watts there to actually come over the top and just pip it on the line from Lidcott, Horton, Hanselect, and there's Murto from R3R coming in at the back end of that pack. That was a good little race there by that group. So you can just see, even down in 50th position, you don't cruise in. You certainly don't take it easy when you're racing against these guys. Every single position, top 50 is always good. John, by the way, that's a canny looking bike John's got, mind you. He's certainly gone for style, hasn't he, John? John, you're looking absolutely tremendous there. Looking certainly the best dressed rider on the course. Prettiest bike. Certainly getting the crowd pleased with your aesthetics, and of course beautiful, absolutely deserved. Blowing a kiss. I'm going to take that as blowing a kiss rather than anything else. One way forward, that's to the finishing line. Come on, John, let's see. You've got 118, 109, less than 100 meters go. Come on, let's see some of that red zone that you can put out. Come on, you know you want to show that bike off to its full capabilities. You want to see that beautiful blue jersey kind of swishing through. What a great finish by John. Well done, John. Good work today there, mate. Again, coming down. So Crichton is cruising in there now. Got nobody to race against, and that's always difficult. Let's see whether Scott can actually get a little bit of red zone going, or whether he's going to just mosey on in, take the applause from the birds and the beautiful Devon countryside. Not much crowd here today, which is surprising with such a wonderful field, but you know, these COVID times, you just never know what's going to happen, especially when everybody's working from home. Tim Cook, who's currently leading up the R3R team, working hard. He was in a group before. We can see that group worked up. Tim is a very avid RGT racer, does most of his racing on RGT. Currently leading up the 3R team, coming in just outside the top 60, but anywhere inside the top of all of the riders is good. Always my gain is not to be last, and that's always my gain. Anything better than that is a certain bonus. Top half, job done. Top 10, lucky day. Like some of these guys who are disappointed if they don't finish in the top 10. Tim cruising in 2.5, definitely milking it for the crowd, getting some camera time for the sponsors. And then we've got some of the other guys coming in now. So we can just see we've got Rowe down in 67th position, who's still got another 1.32 kilometers of racing to go. And just shows how difficult this race has been and how quick these front guys have been pushing the pace. That, you know, we've been watching these guys coming in now for about 10-15 minutes, and the front runners, they're down on the trainers doing their warm down, picking their ice cream, licking their flakes, looking at their monkey blood, trying not to get sticky fingers off the monkey blood dripping off the ice cream, while they just revel in their performances today. And to be fair, the front group, the performances today were absolutely awesome. We certainly cannot complain about the level of racing that we've seen today. It certainly hasn't been a boring race to watch. It's been a very exciting race to watch. It's been a very good race to commentate on. Nobody has certainly bogged out today. Johansson there with an equally pretty, look at, they see that's effort. He's gone to the effort to make his wheels and his bike match his top. That you just get extra style points. I think, you know what, I think we should give that lad an extra point just for pure stylish brilliance. Even if he doesn't do anything from now for the rest of this race, it just looks so good. Surely we have to start introducing style points into these races. Would definitely get my vote. I'm certainly one for advocating style over substance. Hurst, is he looking to chase down Christoph? Will Christoph be able to hold him off? Will Hurst close him down? He's coming up to the finishing line. Just coming around to the crest, coming around the corner. And we'll just start to see that finishing banner. There it is. You know you're nearly home. Going there. Oh, he's got a lovely Yorkshire top on. Riding from Germany. The German Yorkshireman. Definite bit of a contradiction. Get a German and a Yorkshireman in with a conversation, pretty much guaranteed to be a very animated affair. I can guarantee that. Torben West Hansen again, and yet another Danish rider coming in with 300 meters to go. What will be great to see is if you just look at, if any of you do any training at all, you'll understand the term of TSS. What would be so lovely to see is just what kind of TSS these guys are putting down. So this is an hour's worth of racing. So if you're working at your FTP, which is your functional threshold power, the power that you should be able to hold for an hour, for 1 hour will give you a TSS of 100. It would be lovely to see how some of these front runners were. Gringo, what his was up to today, Mard, Felbeller, Swart, you know, his normalized power will be through the roof. The amount of bursts that he put in, I'm fairly sure that these front guys will be TSSing somewhere over 100. I'm fairly sure that most of them will have been working above or near their functional threshold power, and I would not be at all surprised if some of these riders today, with the amount of effort that they put in, have seen a little increase in their FTP just due to the fact that they push that little bit harder on these racing platforms than what you would do if you were sitting grinding in on the trainer. And that's one of the beauties about these racing platforms, the interactivity of it. I know I'm not a cyclist by history, but certainly getting into the racing platforms that I work on now certainly make me work a lot harder. Hurst just waving to the crowd as he goes past. Nice bit of waving action there. And they're working on these racing platforms, racing against other riders from all over the planet definitely makes you work harder. There's Benny coming in there, Johansson and that beautiful yellow top in row. Hoffmeyer. We've got such an array of bikes in the platform. We can see that everyone, you've got the choice of pretty much all of your kit. So you have a choice of your helmet, your glasses, your jersey, your bike as well. So you can certainly style yourself up. And you know, the good thing about it, you've got unlimited number of bikes to an extent in your garage. Fancy riding the BMC today? Great. I'll just get that down off the peg. Fancy riding their beautiful green Evo that John was riding. Yeah, I'll get that down off the peg. I'm going to mix it up a little bit. And that's one of the nice things. You get to ride these bikes that you never get to ride yourself, or certainly get away with buying without stashing them in your next door neighbour's basement and then taking it out when your partner's not looking, which I'm very sure many of you do. Hoffmeyer cruising in there, 70th position, top 70, and I think his nana's made that jersey. What she's done, she's taken a checkered flag from the Nürburgring, just taken a little bit of nice orange fabric, and she's just mashed up beautiful. I reckon that's kind of the racing equivalent of a Christmas jumper. Checkered flag there, bit of blanket stitched together by Granny Hoffmeyer. Go on there, you wear your Hoffmeyer checkered jersey there, and it comes across in the top 70 positions. It's great to see all these riders come in. It's good to see that none of them are actually just cruising in at 2 watts per kilogram as well. It's nice to see that they're all putting a little bit of effort to finish the race in a good position. Coming up to the end of races now. The last couple of lads coming in. Hoffmeyer and Luton looks like he's coming up to one of the end races, and we got P. Smith down the road. But as we saw at the very start of the race, some of these racers who are coming in the end positions would have been those races that we saw static on the start line. So unfortunately, as in any bike racing, any biking events, things can happen. Get a puncture, drop your water bottle, drop your Garmin. These things do happen. And in the virtual world, sometimes you just lose that pairing of your trainer to the software. You pedal like hell and you go nowhere. And there's nothing more demoralizing than warming yourself up, sitting in the pen, ready to race. Everything drops out and nothing happens. And you end up, your race is pretty much finished before you began. And I wouldn't be surprised if this is the fate that all was held. He's still got a little while to go yet, but he's done exceptional. And there we can see the final results coming in. Gringo absolutely dominated the race there today and won the race by 26 seconds over Henrik Mard, pulling out 4.83 watts per kilogram, and that's certainly no mean feat whatsoever. Dowd, who put in a really good attack at one point, managing to come in third position, and Gavash into fourth, and then John Beams, who was our combator last week, put him in the top 5 positions. Saad Kedarine, Rasmus Feldballer, Blodgett, Highballer and Bearing in our top 10. Feldballer again was very testament to the attacking in the first half of the race. Did a lot of work with Gringo for the first bit of the race, was finally sucked into the pack and then just didn't have enough to respond. Briley, who actually managed to overtake Mike Sward. Briley, who was in the chasing 5 races behind the front group, obviously made quite a concerted effort to break free from Water Clays. Managed to close down Mike Swart and take 11th position on the line. And then we can see the little flurry of 3R riders with Matt Lugger, John Vanna and Ben Bonner coming in there. Doug Hart, Hans Olsen and Mark Rowbottom topping out the top 20. As we come down, Kevin Barkley, Tom Gakes, we saw Tom really suffering on his camera earlier on, coming into 23rd position. Farrell, Redpath, Snever, Jones, Ostergaard, Nugent Bauer and Austin topping out the top 30 positions on the road today. There we go, all the way down to 40th position. I love that. Careless Vesper, probably one of the best names. Disappointing that we didn't see Janrazik this week after his brilliant win last week, and there's no Wheel Sucker this week. So that's 2 weeks running we've seen different riders topping out the top 3 positions. So we're going to definitely see some changes in the individual standings, and it will be interesting to see how it fares in the team standings over the next, as we process the results and get the team points in. With coming in, just coming up to that last 600 metres, let's see Paul home. He's deserved our attentions, he's deserved the camera time. Let's just hope that he gives the crowd a good show. Come on, Paul, let's see some of that orange and red that I'm sure you've been tucking away, and you've probably been trying to pull out in the race to try and close down gaps. So this is essentially the end of race 2. 1 lap of Bood Loop. And I'm fairly sure that you will agree that it certainly was not an easy race. And then I thought it was an excellent race course. Really good choice of roads. And one of the joys and one of the beauties of RGT is that you can actually convert real roads into virtual roads. They have this wonderful feature called Magic Roads where you can submit a GPX file to RGT and they can turn your route into real roads. And this is what we can see here. This is a Magic Roads road. This is a real road around the West Cornwall coast, around the town of Bood, which make beautiful ice cream. Turn that into real roads. So these are real roads that racers actually race around the West Cornwall coast. But obviously the scenery will be a little bit different. RGT generate the scenery automatically, so we don't see the exact features of where you are. But to be fair, when you're racing this hard, you haven't got an awful lot of time for sightseeing. You're generally trying to suck the wheel in front, looking at who's in front of you, looking at who's behind you. Never mind how beautiful that tree is on the right hand side and where the ice cream van is. Paul just bringing it up there in the rear. Well done, Paul, good effort. Good to see you finish off there. And that pretty much concludes the race for this evening. So next week, what have we got next week? So we can see next week we only have 120 meters of elevation and a shorter and probably faster and probably a lot quicker ride. 29.9 kilometers. Again, we had this loop ride all the way around the Cornwall area again. We've got a beautiful bit of sea scenery there. We've got some side winds and we've got this straight point-to-point course following the coast all the way around Cornwall. Let's just hope that the wind doesn't start making some echelons across the road as they go past the seaside into the arcades. That was the Bood Loop this week. Hopefully you enjoyed the racing today. I will be putting a poll up for the combateur, but I'm fairly sure that I know who you guys will pick. Well done to everybody who picked out the winner. We will be picking out a winner from those entries for the voucher for the Nopinz kit. And that will be coming your way very soon, and we shall get that posted up soon. And I will look forward to seeing you all next Monday for the Bidford to Croyd point-to-point and the third round of the Nopinz Super Series. Until next week, guys, have a great evening, enjoy your racing, let these guys cool down, and we'll see you next Monday.